Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Stargirl Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 10, the fourth last episode for this season, otherwise entitled, as we've usually been this season, Summer School Chapter 10. But of course, spoiler alert for this episode, because, whoa, oh my goodness, the ending for this episode definitely caught me off guard, and it makes me wonder what's next, who we meeting going forward, but yeah. That might spoil something if you're still watching, but go away if you're not watching the episode, because there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, of course, if you have watched the episode, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts, opinions, theories, predictions, everything about the episode and everything going forward as well. I'm always curious to read them. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode and you're going to enjoy this video, why not drop a like on the video to show your support and enjoyment. So last episode was obviously one of the bigger episodes for the season in regards to hype due to promotion and as well as just what was, revealed. So we had these JSA flashbacks, which of course featured John Wesley Shipp's Jay Garrick. We had Our Men, Wildcat, Johnny Thunder, Starman, all of them there. But we also intertwined with that, get the Eclipso origins, the origins of Eclipso and how Bruce Gordon first, was taken over by him in the present, or, once he came back to America. And we see its effect on the JSA back then. And then we also have Courtney learning about what Pat and Barbara were keeping from her, which is, of course, was how they dealt with Eclipso and everything like that. She's not happy, but Eclipso is happy as he was watching through the window. Now, this episode, the episode itself was pretty timid, or not timid, like very... It just moved through the paces. It was very, standard. There wasn't anything like bang, 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 bang going on. It felt pretty standard. I thought it was one of those episodes that was setting up the final 3 episodes, which it technically is for the most part. But the last 5, you could argue 10 minutes of this episode, even 15 with some of the stuff that goes on with Jenny later in the episode, it sets up a lot of stuff that I'm thinking is some season 3 stuff. I think what happens with Jenny and that thing, which we'll talk about, is season 3, but we'll jump into that. So yeah, the ending of this episode caught me off guard, but makes me really excited for what's coming next. But in regards to this episode, let's break it down. So we start decades ago. Once again, we love starting decades ago on Stargirl, but this time it's at the JSA headquarters with Pat preparing to leave the JSA headquarters after the takedown of Bruce Gordon. However, before he leaves, Starman arrives and wants to apologize over some drinks, which is usually the way to go about it. Now, Starman was hoping that bringing Pat along would sort of like open up an avenue or just a way to take down Eclipso while also saving Bruce Gordon, not having to kill and follow the JSA's morals. They always find a way. And I did really enjoy that story about Sylvester's birthday watch and how, it got stolen from him and he was just sort of going to leave it. He thought it was from his parents. But it was actually Pat. It wasn't his parents. He knew it wasn't be his parents. It was actually Pat who snuck in and left it for him. And it pushes him to go and get the watch from the guy that stole it from. And that really did just like highlight the relationship between Pat and Sylvester and how much Sylvester looked at, I don't know what the word is, but the respect for Pat and the camaraderie between the two. Now, through these events that may have brought about the end to the JSA, Sylvester doesn't want to ruin that relationship with Pat. Now, this is a complete 180 from how Sylvester was treating Pat last episode, and I wasn't too sure how things were going to go when, Sylvester or Starman or whoever it is that we've been seeing that Joel McHale is playing eventually shows up. Based off the end of last episode, I thought, well, that's going to be a rocky relationship. But based off the beginning of this episode, I'm like, well, the relationship might not be that rocky. It might just be other people that Sylvester influences or has an effect on when he comes back. So now I'm incredibly intrigued to see what happens there, because it seems like there's not going to be too much drama. I love a bit of drama, but I'd rather them be friends. So I'd rather that be like a friendship that remains. Now, we do pick up in the modern day from the end of last episode, where Courtney is obviously not happy with what the JSA did in the past, but this is interrupted when the Shade crashes into the kitchen. He is still heavily injured, but he wants to help take down Eclipso. That's what he's saying. And though he is free, I like the Shade's little edgy response when he reminds Courtney that he was there when Eclipso was freed. But he tells them how to stop Eclipso, fix the diamond, repair it, and the power of light will be what does that job. Unfortunately, we do see the cosmic staff at work on the diamond, but it isn't really doing anything. However, Pat does have a plan, and that plan is the Green Lantern's light. Maybe the Green Lanterns might as well, but mainly the Green Lantern's light. So it's time for a road trip to find Jenny. Now, Beth did have some key moments in this episode. So we do start off with her sitting down with her parents, and they are a bit concerned, I guess you could say, with Beth's appearance, I'd put it lately. Of course, this being due to her wearing the goggles 24/7. And though we know why she is wearing them and why it's the smartest thing to do, it's a bit of a hard thing to tell her parents, unless she wants to go, hey, I'm a superhero. However, the divorce is a bit of a positive in this situation for Beth, as she can use it as like a cover and an excuse to continue, doing all of this. But Beth does leave to go to Courtney's house to keep Barbara and Mike safe while Pat and Courtney are gone. And if this was a few episodes ago, you would question it, but now you're like, I believe it. Now, Pat and Courtney's road trip, I did find the radio stuff hilarious. I was wondering, will it keep going two more stations? They cut it off with just 2 stations, but it was still funny. Now, Pat does explain in detail what happened in the past rather than just dot points in the brief thing he gave Courtney before, which obviously made her mad. However, Courtney just still has good points as to why keeping the secret wasn't beneficial. Neither side is really 100% correct, but neither are wrong either. I think we can all side with Pat not diving into the details straight away, while also siding with Courtney as to why it's fractured the thinking of the current JSA and just the state of the current JSA as well. Like if Yolanda knew what happened there wouldn't be so much baggage and guilt, which is 100% correct. But speaking of someone who's now felt the wrath of all the secrets, we meet Rick in prison. So he's still there, and we hear this rumbling and just the rumbling. I guess that's the best way to put it. And Rick is met with apples being thrown into his prison cell, which might not seem like a big thing, but it reassures Rick that Grundy was real at some point before he got locked up. That conversation with the apples happened. It wasn't imaginary. And we as the audience knew that based off the end of that episode that Grundy was real, at least with the apple thing, because we saw Grundy eating apples at the end of the episode. But Rick would have been caught up in a confused abyss as to whether anything really happened there. He took apples to no one and stuff like that. So that's a complete reassurance for Rick. So Rick knows he isn't going completely insane. So that's definitely a positive for Rick going forward. Now, Pat does reveal to Courtney there has been a couple of fires. Green fires, which is how Pat, knows roughly where Jenny is. So they are heading to Civic City, which is the home of the JSA headquarters. Now, before this, Beth does get in contact with Dr. McNider, where he reveals that the Shade actually saved him on the night of the fight with the Injustice Society, and that the Shade dragged him to safety, but he got lost in the Shadowlands. But he does reveal the Shade's history, where we learn that he was actually used as a sacrifice to summon Eclipso, but the black diamond used was a fake, but still opened up the passage to the Shadowlands, in which the Shade was the transportation. Now, Beth does see this as an opportunity to bring back Dr. McNider, though he isn't too sure about it at the same time, and based off what happens in this episode, not too sure whether that's going to happen, but also based off the end of the episode as well, it could as well, because there's someone or a couple of other people in there. Now, Pat and Courtney do arrive in Pat and Starman's garage work area, and we do learn that each JSA person had their own sort of work area and space, which is show me the other ones, please. I'm sure Wildcat's is just a boxing gym. Our Man's is probably a lab or something like that, but I'd still like to see them. But Pat actually hadn't been here for over 10 years. Of course, they had been upstairs. That happened last season. They'd been upstairs, but they hadn't been in this garage area. But didn't they drive the car there last season? So where'd they park it? I don't know, maybe they just parked it out the front. I'm not too sure. But in the garage, it's covered in 7 Soldiers of Victory and JSA memorabilia. Really, really cool. Especially seeing some of the stuff actually colored. And they had new news articles, which had stuff on the Vigilante, on Green Arrow and Speedy, various things like that. Hopefully those make it to the internet in some way, shape or form. I'd love to see them in more detail. However, they do find out that Jenny has been staying in the JSA HQ, as there are documents about a Todd Rice. This is Todd Rice person, and of course that is Jenny's brother. So she's on the lookout for her brother, which we knew she would be. That's why she quickly ran away from Blue Valley last time. But now they've got some connected tissue as to where to go look now. Now, Mike does have a brief thing going on in this episode, it sets up stuff going forward. So Mike sneaks out to go to the workshop to go work on Stripe. And while working on it, Mike turns on the radio and hears about pink lightning going on within Blue Valley. So someone has activated the Thunderbolt pen. And when he does eventually go exploring, we see that a big gingerbread house, not it's just a big gingerbread house for us, but a big gingerbread house, and an entire proper house is now made of like gingerbread and various candy decorations. Looks tasty, but who's got the pen? So we know that Jakeem Williams, who will become Jakeem Thunder, has the pen. It's just going to be interesting to see when he eventually folds into everything else. Very curious to see how they all, how they play it out in these last 3 episodes after this one. Now, one of the bigger things, which is what I was talking about early in the episode, early in this video, about potential season 3 stuff. So this might have been planting seeds for season 3. I might be wrong, and this could just be a giant Easter egg, this entire thing. But this seems like something they could do in season 3. So Pat and Courtney arrive at the Helix Institute, which is where Todd Rice was based off the documents and stuff. Now, Helix is a group from the comics. Now, it's not necessarily a bright spot. It's like people that were people that were born thanks to experiments, or they were born with powers thanks to experiments. That's the baseline of it all. But we'll get to that, later on. Once we talk about what happens there. So Todd Rice is meant to be there, however, he is no longer there. That's what Jenny is told, at least. But Jenny is there, and she's there to collect Todd's belongings. Now, Jenny does admit to the fires being caused by her, which of course we knew, but they weren't intentional. Now, this was just due to like a lack of control, which is sort of Jenny's fault, as she ran off the morning after. Like, she could have stayed an extra day or two and learnt more about it, but we understand why she just left. She didn't come to Blue Valley for a long stay. She just came there because the ring was telling her to. However, we learned that Todd Rice was arrested for shoplifting and sent to the Helix Institute, but disappeared about a week before Jenny arrived. That's what Jenny was told. Now, Todd is connected to the Shadowlands in the comics. He's otherwise known as Obsidian. If you watched Legend of Tomorrow, you would have seen Obsidian there. He was part of that version of the JSA. And though I thought that's where he might have disappeared to, because that's potentially possible. Maybe he was learning his powers, or his powers came to, and he just went to the Shadowlands. We have Louise Love. Now, she is the head nurse, and she rings Dr. Bones, who in the comics is the leader of the Helix group. Now, she rings him to tell him that Todd has a sister, but also sort of reveals that Todd actually hasn't left. At least she didn't leave the way in which she told Jenny. Now, Louise Love, I think, is like a gender-bent version, or maybe like a wife or sister of Dr. Benjamin Love for the show. And Dr. Benjamin Love was the one who, like the man who created the Helix group through the experiment. So this is maybe season 3 seed planting. And in season 3, we might dive more into the Helix group, because they were a part of the Infinity Inc. thing in the comics, which ran at the same time, like in the 80s and early 90s. I think it was just 80s. Along with some of these other characters that are showing up in Stargirl. So that could be season 3. I'm not too sure. It could just be a giant Easter egg, but it also could be the planting of seeds for season 3. So keep those names: Dr. Bones, Louise Love, Helix, Todd Rice. Obviously, keep them in your brain, because they might be a cliffhanger for the end of this season heading into season 3. Not too sure, but it could be. But yeah, in regards to Jenny, her, Pat, and Courtney, they arrive back at the JSA HQ, and they start to reconstruct the diamond with the Green Lantern. It happens really quickly. However, at the same time, Beth learns more information about the diamond thanks to the JSA archives, and we learn that restoring the diamond doesn't trap Eclipso. It actually reconnects the Shade to the Shadowlands, and that's why the Shade came here to quickly go about it, and he's all healed. It allows him to obviously reconnect, but it allows him to heal, so he's nice and healthy again. But the big thing, and the worrying thing, and the disastrous thing, and the Shade is really dodgy. Like, now you just 100% go, yeah, the Shade just doesn't care about anyone. Completely out for himself. It summons Eclipso. Reconstructing the diamond summons Eclipso. We have Green Lantern versus Eclipso, which, it held him off for a bit. And this is a Jenny that's not trained as well. So that's very important to remember. And so maybe that could happen there. But he just bats her off after a bit. However, Courtney's there. Like, the staff isn't, at 100%. Like, Courtney's a sitting duck pretty much. And she's attacked, and she's sucked into the Shadowlands, just like how Cindy Berman, or Shiv, was in episode 6, was it? So obviously, Courtney is sucked in there, but we know that Cindy is now alive. So Cindy's not dead. Cindy is somewhere in the Shadowlands as well, but also Courtney is joining her. What a way to end an episode, and whoa. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting anything really bad to happen to Courtney. I thought it would have happened to someone else. At first, I thought Pat was going to be sucked in, but I guess Pat, it helps if Pat's out there, because Pat can potentially help. But having Courtney in there, I'm assuming that we're going to get maybe some like POV of the Shadowlands as well next episode or in episodes to come. Crazy ending, and I definitely was not expecting it. But overall, this episode, as I said, it felt like it was like one of those episodes that was really setting up the final three where nothing major would happen. But obviously the end went and slapped us in the head and went, hey, don't judge the episode too early. But also, that potential season 3 seed planting, I do wonder whether it is or it was just an Easter egg that they wanted to include. But it felt like they spent a lot of time there and dropped a lot of names. So, I don't know, just keep that in mind going forward. But yeah, enjoyed the hell out of this episode. Set up some Thunderbolt stuff, which I'm sure we'll see going forward. Obviously had some more flashbacks to begin the episode as well, which I always love a good old flashback. But I can't wait to see what happens in these final 3 episodes based off what happens here. Because I think it's going to be insane. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on the episode. What you love, what you hate, what are your favorite moments. Any theories going forward? Would you like to dive into that Helix group stuff in season 3 at some point? Or would you rather leave it there? I don't know. I think it'd be somewhat cool to dive into, especially if it's like with some weird experimental stuff that dives into the past as well. Could be cool. But yeah, let me know your various thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.